The wedding lights shone brilliantly, but the face of the girl at the center was dim, like the moon hidden behind clouds. Elena stood stiffly in a white gown, while the applause of the guests echoed loudly. No one knew that behind her faint smile, her heart was being buried alive. In the corner of the room, her father smiled with pride. Pride had defeated conscience. The daughter of a factory worker had now become the daughter-in-law of a prominent family. Social status felt more important than the cries that had once begged in a narrow room just a few nights ago. Yet Elena's heart had long belonged to a simple man, who now could only watch from afar, carrying a wound no one could see. This arranged marriage was not about love, it was about pride at stake, and suffering that had just begun to slowly creep in. Before we continue this story, don't forget to like and subscribe to Stories with Meaning. Share your thoughts in the comments. May those who support always be blessed with goodness in their lives. The town of Riverton always woke before the sun. A thin mist hovered over the fields. Roosters crowed like alarms that never failed. In a small, weathered wooden house lived the family of Thomas Carter. Thomas was a worker at a wood processing factory owned by the powerful Harrington Corporation. Every day he inhaled the scent of sawdust and endured the roar of machines that sounded like starving iron beasts. His hands were rough, his back often sore, but his eyes always lit up when he looked at his only daughter, Elena. Elena was not a girl who cared for excessive appearance. Her face was gentle, her gaze calm. She helped her mother, who had long suffered from a mild illness, and managed their small home with care. In town, she was known for her politeness and modesty. Every afternoon, under a mango tree near the elementary school, there was someone who waited for her: Noah Bennett. Noah was a substitute teacher at the local school. His salary was small, sometimes delayed for months, but he loved his job, and he loved Elena in the simplest, most sincere way. One evening, Noah spoke softly. "Elena, when I finally become a full-time teacher, I will come to ask for your hand. I don't have much, but I want to build a life with you." Elena lowered her gaze shyly and smiled. "I don't need a big house, Noah, as long as we take care of each other." The words sounded simple, but to them it was a silent promise that strengthened their bond. On the other side of town stood the grand factory building of Harrington Corporation. Its offices towered high, its walls gleaming. Luxury cars came and went like a parade of wealth. The owner, Victor Harrington, was a respected figure. His son, Adrian Harrington, had just returned from the city after completing his studies. Adrian was different from the men in town. His suits were immaculate, his polished black shoes never touched mud. He spoke with confidence and authority. One day, Adrian visited the factory branch in Riverton. Thomas Carter was among the workers lined up to welcome him. During lunch break, Elena came to deliver food to her father. She walked quietly across the yard carrying a simple lunchbox. Adrian's gaze stopped. For a moment, the sound of machines seemed to fade. He looked at her with an unfamiliar curiosity. "Who is that girl?" Adrian asked the foreman. "That's Thomas Carter's daughter. Her name is Elena." From that day, the name Elena stayed in Adrian's mind like a song he couldn't forget. A few days later, during a town charity event, Adrian made sure to attend. He stood among the crowd, but his eyes were searching for one face. And he found her. Elena sat among the women of the town, wearing a simple pale blue dress without any striking jewelry, yet that simplicity made her stand out even more. Adrian approached with confident steps. "Your name is Elena, right?" She was startled. "Yes, sir." "Don't call me sir, just call me Adrian." Elena nodded awkwardly. "Is there anything I can help you with?" Adrian smiled faintly. "I just wanted to introduce myself. The conversation was brief, but enough to make Adrian's heart beat faster than usual. News spread quickly. A small town never lacked ears. That night, Thomas returned home with a different expression. There was a strange hope shining in his eyes. "Elena, the boss's son, spoke to you today." Elena nodded. "We just talked briefly." Thomas fell silent for a moment, then smiled widely, something rarely seen after a long day at work. "That's a big opportunity, Elena. Not many people from the city would come down like this." Elena felt something in his tone, not just pride, but ambition beginning to grow. Outside, the night wind whispered softly. At the end of the street, Noah stood watching Elena's house from a distance. He didn't yet know that someone from a completely different world had begun stepping into the life of the woman he loved. Inside her small room, Elena stared at the wooden ceiling. Her heart felt uneasy, as if something was slowly moving toward her life. Something she didn't yet understand, but enough to make her breathing feel heavy. The story had only just begun.
Something had begun to change. Not just the situation, but the direction of life itself. At the factory, Adrian became more direct. He asked for Elena's number, using the excuse that it would make coordination easier for company-sponsored town events. Messages started coming every night. "Have you eaten? Don't work too hard helping your parents. I'll be at the factory again tomorrow." Day by day, Elena felt her personal space shrinking. She had never given him hope, yet the attention kept coming, like rain that never stopped. Unlike Elena, Thomas Carter grew more confident. He began imagining a different future, a bigger house, a higher status, a life without the smell of sawdust. Without realizing it, his ambition was slowly suffocating his daughter. Behind Adrian's calm smile, his determination grew stronger. He wasn't used to rejection, and this time he felt he had found something he had to possess. The tension hadn't exploded yet, but like fire beneath ashes, the heat was beginning to spread. That afternoon, the sky over Riverton glowed in pale orange. Adrian, leaving the factory office, decided to take a detour through the small road near the elementary school. His intention was simple. He hoped to see Elena, and he did. Under the same mango tree, Elena sat close to Noah Bennett. They spoke softly. Occasionally, Elena smiled. A smile Adrian had never seen before. A light, unburdened smile. Noah spoke gently. "I'm working on additional paperwork. Maybe next year I'll finally be promoted to a full-time teacher." Elena looked at him with certainty. "I believe in you." Those words pierced Adrian like a needle. He turned off his car engine. His eyes narrowed. His chest burned. All this time, he thought Elena was just a shy, small-town girl who needed time to open up. But her heart already belonged to someone else, a substitute teacher with an old motorcycle and worn-out shoes. That night, Adrian couldn't sleep. His pride felt scratched by something sharp. He was used to getting whatever he wanted. And now, for the first time, he felt rejected, without ever being given a real chance. The next day, he saw Noah's old motorcycle parked behind the school. The paint was peeling, the exhaust rusted. Adrian stood there for a long moment. No witnesses, only the wind and the sound of leaves. His hand moved quickly. A small bolt was loosened carefully, not enough to be obvious, but enough to make the brakes fail. He walked away calmly. That afternoon, Noah rode Elena home as usual. As the motorcycle went downhill along a slightly sloped road, the brakes failed. The bike lost control. A loud crash echoed. Noah's body was thrown onto the asphalt. Villagers screamed. Dust filled the air. Elena, walking a few steps behind, cried out in horror. Noah was rushed to a hospital in the nearby city. The town fell silent, as if holding its breath. Days later, the doctor delivered the devastating truth. Noah's spine had suffered severe damage. He would never walk again. Elena sat beside his hospital bed, holding his now colder hand. "I'm okay," Noah said, forcing a weak smile. Tears fell silently from Elena's eyes. "I'm staying. I'm not going anywhere." Noah turned his face away. I don't want to become a burden. Elena shook her head firmly. Love isn't about standing or sitting. I still want to be with you. But when the news reached Thomas Carter, his reaction wasn't sympathy. It was fear. "See," he said one night, his voice sharp, "how are you going to live with a crippled man who has no future?" Elena stared at him in disbelief. "He's not broken, Dad." Linda Carter added coldly, "You want to suffer too. Have you thought about your parents who are tired of living in hardship?" Before Elena could answer, another news arrived. Adrian Harrington had officially sent his family to propose. Thomas felt like he had struck gold. "This is our way out," he said confidently. "We can't throw this away just because of childish feelings." Elena felt the world pressing on her chest. Noah lay paralyzed. Adrian came with a proposal, and her family stood, not by her side, but by pride. That night in her small room, Elena cried in silence. The real storm had just begun.
But behind the walls of that grand mansion, something had begun to crack. Something not yet visible, but its faint sound could already be heard. Time moved slowly, then suddenly shifted direction, like a wind cutting sharply from the north. The first months of marriage had seemed calm, but that calm was only the surface of water, hiding a powerful current beneath. The change began with small things. One morning, as Elena served breakfast, Margot Harrington tasted the soup she had prepared. Her spoon paused midair. "The seasoning is off," she said coldly. "You really have no standards. I suppose in your parents' house everything was done carelessly." Elena lowered her head. "I'm sorry. I'll fix it." Margot smiled thinly. "Learn properly. Don't bring your small-town habits into this house." The word small town was spoken like an insult, not an origin. From that day on, the tone changed. Corrections became sarcasm. Sarcasm turned into open humiliation. When guests were present, Elena was treated gently. "Elena, please bring tea for your aunt," Margot would say sweetly. Her mother-in-law smiled warmly. Adrian would even put an arm around her shoulders in front of others. But once the doors closed, everything changed. "Why are you just standing there?" Adrian snapped one night. "Go clean my father's study. Don't just stand like a useless statue." Elena paused. "I just finished in the kitchen." Adrian stepped closer, his gaze sharp. "You're lucky to live in this house. Don't make excuses." His voice lowered. "Without me, you'd still be a nobody, just a worker's daughter." The words struck harder than a slap. In the following days, Elena was given more and more responsibilities, not just helping, but managing nearly the entire household. The maids were still there, but only for specific tasks. The rest fell on Elena. She woke earlier than anyone. She slept the latest. Her body was tired, her heart even more. One afternoon, during a family gathering, one of Adrian's relatives sneered, "Well, it suits you, doesn't it? From a worker's daughter to managing a luxury house, quite the promotion." Some people chuckled softly. Elena stood beside the dining table, holding back the burning in her chest. What hurt even more, Thomas and Linda Carter often came to visit. Every time they did, the Harrington family became actors on a stage. Adrian smiled warmly. "Elena is very hard-working, sir. We all care about her." Margot added, "She's like a daughter to me." Thomas returned home full of pride. "I knew you'd be happy," he said. Elena only smiled faintly. She couldn't bring herself to shatter her father's pride with the bitter truth. At night, when they were alone, Adrian was no longer gentle. "You need to know your place," he said one evening, his voice low but threatening. "Out there, I honor you. Inside this house, you do what I tell you." Elena stared at him in disbelief. "Why have you changed like this?" Adrian chuckled softly. "Changed?
I'm just putting everything where it belongs." Tears fell silently. She felt not only humiliated, but erased as a human being. Inside that mansion, Elena lived in two worlds. In public, she was cherished. Behind closed doors, she was treated worse than a servant. And slowly, something inside her began to break. That night, a light rain fell. Not heavy, but enough to hide the footsteps of someone leaving silently. Elena stood in front of the mirror for a long time. Her face was pale, her eyes swollen from holding back too many tears. She looked at herself like a stranger. With only a small bag of simple clothes, she stepped out while the house was sleeping. The large gates of the Harrington mansion were tightly closed, but the side door was never fully locked. Her steps trembled, but for the first time in a long time, she felt like she was walking by her own choice. Her parents' wooden house looked the same as before. The living room lights still glowed dimly. Elena knocked softly. Linda opened the door, shocked. "Elena, why are you here this late?" Elena broke down. "Mom, I can't take it anymore." Thomas came out annoyed. "What is this? Why are you back?" Tears streamed down her face. "Dad, they treat me like a servant. They humiliate me every day. Adrian has changed. My mother-in-law looks down on me." She hoped for an embrace, for a shoulder to lean on, but instead, "Don't be disrespectful," Thomas shouted. "Do you think marriage is always sweet? Every wife is tested." "Dad, this isn't just a test. I'm being humiliated, treated like nothing." Linda snapped. "Stop being dramatic. You live in luxury and still complain. Do you want to go back to being poor?" Elena froze. Luxury sounded like a curse. Thomas pointed to the door. "Go back to your husband. Don't embarrass this family. The whole town knows you're the boss's wife." Her heart felt like it was being torn out. "You're more afraid of what people say than your own daughter's suffering." Her voice trembled. A sharp slap landed on her cheek. "Don't you lecture me about dignity." There was no place left for her in the home that once felt safe. Elena walked away again. The rain grew heavier, but this time her steps did not lead back to her husband's house. They led to a small home at the edge of town, Noah's house. She knocked, her hands trembling. Noah's mother opened the door, shocked. "Elena?" Noah, sitting in his wheelchair, turned quickly. His face paled at the sight of her, wet, shaking, crying. "Elena, what happened?" She fell to her knees in front of him. All the words she had held back poured out. The insults, the harsh commands, the fake smiles in front of her parents, the way Adrian treated her like an object. "I'm tired. I don't feel human there." Noah held back tears. His trembling hand held hers. "I'm sorry. If I hadn't been paralyzed, maybe you wouldn't have gone through this." Elena shook her head firmly. "Don't blame yourself. I'm the one who didn't fight from the beginning." Noah's mother cried softly. "Oh God, how cruel they are." His father, who had been silent, finally spoke. "She's endured too much." That night, the small house was filled with quiet sobs. There was no luxury, no crystal chandeliers, but there was something real: care. For the first time in a long time, Elena felt heard. But elsewhere, the Harrington mansion realized Elena had gone, and someone had begun searching. Dawn had not fully broken when the long conversation ended. The air was still damp from last night's rain. Elena sat on a wooden chair. Her eyes were swollen, but her gaze had changed. Not just sadness anymore. Something inside her was rising. Noah looked at Elena for a long moment. "Elena," he said finally, firm but gentle, "you can't stay here." She froze. I have nowhere else to go." He took a deep breath. "That's exactly why you have to leave for now. If you stay here, they will come. They will accuse you, slander you, make things worse. I won't let you be stepped on any further." His mother nodded. Noah continued, "I have an aunt in the next town. Stay there for now, quietly. Let me handle them." Elena bit her lip. "I don't want you to get into more trouble because of me." Noah gave a faint smile. "I've lost many things. My dignity isn't one of them." A few hours later, before the sun rose high, Elena was quietly taken to his aunt's house, a simple home hidden behind cassava fields. The aunt was surprised, but after hearing part of the story, she embraced Elena without hesitation. Meanwhile, at the Harrington mansion, tension filled the air. "You said she went to her parents' house?" Margot snapped at Adrian. Adrian clenched his jaw. "She's not there." Thomas stood pale as Adrian arrived with his parents. "Where is your daughter?" Adrian asked coldly. She came home last night, but I told her to go back." "Don't lie," Victor said sharply. "She's not in our house." Suspicion led them to one place, Noah's house. The black car stopped abruptly in front of the small home. Noah was already sitting on the porch, as if he was waiting. Adrian stepped out, his face hard. "Where is Elena?" Noah looked at him calmly. "She came last night." Margot's face turned cold. "How dare you shelter another man's wife?" Noah gave a faint, almost mocking smile. "I didn't let her stay." Adrian narrowed.
His tone was flat, almost indifferent. Adrian stared at Noah sharply, searching for any crack in his words. "You expect me to believe that?" he asked coldly. Noah shrugged. "That's your problem. I'm just a disabled substitute teacher. There's nothing to gain from bringing a rich man's trouble into a small house like this." The words sounded resigned, but beneath his calmness, something was moving. Adrian stepped closer. "If I find out you're lying, you'll regret it." Noah met his gaze without fear. "I've already regretted many things in life. One more thread won't make my nights any worse." The air tightened, but without proof, Adrian could do nothing. They eventually left, their anger unresolved. As the car disappeared around the corner, Noah's father stepped closer. "Are you sure about this?" Noah kept his eyes on the empty road. "This is just the beginning. They've been controlling people's lives for far too long." His usually gentle eyes now held a quiet determination. In the neighboring town, Elena had no idea that a larger game was unfolding. The small house fell silent again after the Harrington family left. Noah sat in his wheelchair, staring at the worn wooden floor. His thoughts raced. He knew hiding Elena wasn't enough. He had to destroy the root of the problem. But how? He murmured. He had no power, no money, no position, only the truth, and even that might not be heard. A knock came at the door. His father opened it. 3 people stood outside, workers from the school canteen where Noah taught. "Sorry to disturb you, Mr. Bennett. We've been wanting to talk for a long time." Noah frowned. "What is it?" A woman looked uneasy. "It's about your accident." Noah fell silent. Another man continued, his voice low but firm. "The day before it happened, we saw someone near your motorcycle. He stood there for quite a while." Noah's heartbeat quickened. "Who?" They exchanged glances. "The factory owner's son," the woman whispered. "We were afraid to speak before," she added. "But we saw him. He was messing with something on your bike." The words struck like lightning. Pieces began to connect. Adrian's stare that afternoon, his strange smile, the accident that changed everything. "Why are you telling me this now?" Noah asked quietly. "We were afraid of losing our jobs," the man admitted. "But after hearing how Elena was treated, we couldn't stay silent." Something rose inside Noah, not wild anger, but clear, focused rage.
That night, he made a decision. The next day, Noah came with the witnesses to Thomas Carter's house. In the modest living room, Thomas greeted them with confusion. "What is all this?" Noah looked straight at him. "I want to talk about my accident." Thomas scoffed. "That was fate." Noah shook his head slowly. "Maybe not just fate." One by one, the witnesses stepped forward. They told everything: the time, the place, and Adrian's suspicious movements. Thomas's face began to change. "That's a serious accusation," he said weakly. "I'm not accusing without reason," Noah replied calmly. "I'm just sharing what they saw." Linda sat frozen. "The boss's son did that?" she whispered. "We saw it ourselves," the woman said, her voice trembling. Silence filled the room. For the first time, Thomas's pride in the Harrington family cracked. His mind returned to that night, Elena crying, begging to be heard. The words he once dismissed now sounded different. "What if?" he whispered. Linda covered her mouth, tears forming. What if she was telling the truth all along? Thomas sat down heavily. The world he once admired suddenly felt fragile. If Adrian could sabotage a motorcycle just to remove Noah, what else could he do to Elena? The suspicion spread like fire meeting dry wood, and for the first time they saw the darkness behind the luxury they once worshipped. That night their home felt different. No pride, only shame and suffocation. Thomas sat in silence, his strong hands trembling on the table. "What kind of father am I?" he whispered. Linda cried softly. "We didn't trust our own daughter. We trusted someone else's wealth instead." The next morning, Thomas went to the factory. But this time, he walked not with his head down. He requested to meet both Victor and Adrian. Inside the large office, the air felt heavy. "What is it, Thomas?" Victor asked coldly. Thomas looked straight ahead, for the first time. "I'm not here as a worker. I'm here as a father." Adrian crossed his arms. "So your daughter runs away and now you blame us?" Thomas clenched his fists. "Don't speak like you're innocent. I know about Noah's motorcycle." Adrian's expression shifted just for a second before turning into a cold smile. "Baseless accusations." "There are witnesses," Thomas replied firmly. "If you're willing to destroy someone's life for your desire, I won't let you destroy my daughter any further." Margot laughed softly, dismissively. "A small worker dares to threaten us." Thomas swallowed. "I may be nobody, but I will no longer sell my daughter for pride." Victor stared sharply. "If you take this further, you know the consequences." Thomas nodded slowly. "I know. I'm ready to lose my job." Those words cut the last thread of his fear. He knew money and power could twist the truth. He knew he was just a small man, but he could still take his daughter back. Before leaving, he looked at Adrian. "You may be able to buy many things, but you will never buy my daughter's dignity again." Thomas walked out, his chest trembling between fear and relief. That afternoon, he and Linda went to the neighboring town. The small house stood quietly beside a cassava field. Elena, who was sweeping the yard, froze when she saw them. Her face turned pale. "Dad? Mom?" Her voice trembled. She stepped back, afraid. Thomas walked closer. For the first time, he carried no anger. Instead, he kneeled before her. "Forgive me. I was wrong," he said, his voice breaking. "I chose pride over your happiness. I was blind." Tears fell freely. Suddenly, the sound of wheelchair wheels approached from behind. Noah appeared. His gaze was calm, but firm. "Elena?" She looked at him, shocked. "Noah!" Thomas stood slowly and spoke with certainty. "We're going to take care of your divorce." Elena covered her mouth as her tears burst out. Linda hugged her tightly. "We won't force you anymore. Your life is not a tool to raise our status." In that small yard, there were no grand tents, no sparkling lights, only a family finally choosing the truth, even if it meant losing everything. And for the first time in a long while, Elena cried not because she was humiliated, but because she was finally heard.